I was loading boxes into my truck when I heard tires on the gravel driveway. Not expecting anyone, I straightened up and wiped my hands on my jeans. A silver sedan pulled up, and a woman stepped out. She was wearing expensive sunglasses and a designer coat that looked completely out of place in our small Montana town. Then she took off the sunglasses, and my blood ran cold. It was Rebecca, my late brother's wife, the woman who'd walked out on her 6-month-old son 11 years ago and never looked back. She smiled at me like we were old friends. "Hello, Marcus." I stood there, frozen, the wrench still in my hand. Behind me, through the workshop window, I could hear my nephew Tyler laughing at something on his phone. He was 16 now, a good kid, honor roll student, starting quarterback. He had no memory of the woman standing in front of me, and I intended to keep it that way. "What are you doing here?" My voice came out harder than I'd planned. Rebecca's smile didn't waver. "I came to see my son." Those 5 words hit me like a punch to the gut. For 11 years, not a single phone call, not a birthday card, not a Christmas present. My brother Daniel had been dead for 10 years, killed in a construction accident when Tyler was barely 18 months old. I'd stood at Daniel's grave, holding that baby boy, and watched Rebecca drive away 2 weeks later. She'd left a note on the kitchen table. "I can't do this. I'm sorry." And now she was back. "He doesn't know you," I said, stepping between her and the workshop. "You need to leave." "Marcus, please. I know I made mistakes, but I'm his mother. I have rights." "Rights." The word made my jaw clench. "You gave up those rights when you abandoned him." She pulled a folder from her designer purse. "Actually, I never signed any papers. Legally, I'm still his guardian. I've consulted with a lawyer, and according to Montana state law, I have every right to my son." My heart was pounding now. Why now? Why after all these years? Rebecca looked away, and for a moment, I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt? Shame? But it was gone as quickly as it appeared. "I've changed, Marcus. I've gotten my life together. I'm remarried now. We have a stable home in California. Tyler deserves to know his mother." It sounded rehearsed. Every word of it. "California?" I said slowly. "That's convenient. What's that supposed to mean?" But I knew exactly what it meant. 3 months ago, Daniel's business partner had finally bought me out of the construction company my brother had co-founded. It had been a long legal process, but the settlement was substantial. $2.3 million, split between Tyler's trust fund and the savings account I'd set up for his college education. The story had made the local paper. Small-town news travels fast. "How did you even find out we were here?" I asked. Rebecca had the decency to look uncomfortable. I've been keeping tabs. Through Facebook, I saw the article about the business sale. There it was. The truth hiding behind her designer clothes and practiced smile. She wasn't here for Tyler. She was here for the money. "Uncle Marcus?" Tyler's voice came from behind me. I turned to see him standing in the workshop doorway, confusion written all over his young face. He had his father's eyes, Daniel's strong jaw. Looking at him was like looking at my brother at that age. "Who's that?" Tyler asked. Rebecca took a step forward. "Tyler? Oh my God, you're so big. I'm your mother." The confusion on Tyler's face deepened. "My mother's dead. I'd told him that years ago. It had seemed kinder than the truth that she'd chosen to leave him. Now I realized I might have made a terrible mistake. "No, sweetie, I'm alive. I had to leave when you were a baby, but I never stopped thinking about you. I never stopped loving you." Tyler looked at me, his eyes full of questions I didn't know how to answer. "Uncle Marcus?" "Tyler, go inside the house," I said quietly. "But now, please." He hesitated, then turned and walked toward the house, glancing back over his shoulder. I watched him go, my chest tight with a fear I hadn't felt since the night Daniel died. When Tyler was inside, I turned back to Rebecca. "You need to leave, now. I'm not going anywhere without my son." "He's not your son. You lost that right when you walked away. The law says differently." She pulled out a business card. "This is my attorney. You'll be hearing from him. I'm filing for custody, Marcus, and I will get my son back." She got back in her car and drove away, leaving me standing there in a cloud of dust and dread. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Daniel, about the promise I'd made at his funeral. "I'll take care of him," I'd said to my brother's casket. "I swear to God, I'll give him a good life." And I had. For 11 years, Tyler had been mine in every way that mattered. I'd taught him to ride a bike, to cast a fishing line, to throw a football. I'd sat through parent-teacher conferences, school plays, and little league games. I'd held him when he had nightmares and cheered when he won his first wrestling match. I'd been his father in everything but name. The thought of losing him to a woman who'd abandoned him because motherhood was inconvenient made my blood boil. The next morning, I drove to the only lawyer in town, Jim Patterson. He was 72 and had been handling legal matters in our county for 40 years. He listened to my story, his weathered face growing more serious with each sentence. "Marcus, I'm going to be straight with you," Jim said when I finished. "If she never signed away her parental rights, she's got a strong case. Blood relation counts for a lot in family court. Even though she abandoned him for 11 years, it'll look bad for her, but it might not be enough. Especially if she can prove she's stable now, has a good home, steady income. The court might see it as a mother trying to reconnect with her child." I felt sick. "So what do I do?" Jim leaned back in his chair. "Tell me something. When Daniel died, did Rebecca do anything? Sign anything? There had to be some kind of legal arrangement when she left." I thought back to those dark days. I was appointed temporary guardian. There was paperwork at the hospital after Daniel's accident. I remember signing things, but I was in shock. "I don't remember all the details. Do you still have that paperwork? It should be in the file cabinet at home." "But Jim, that was just temporary, right? It expired?" "Maybe, maybe not." Jim stood up. "Go home and find every piece of paper related to Tyler's guardianship. Every form you signed, every court document, every medical release. Bring it all to me tomorrow." I spent the rest of the day tearing apart my home office. I found Daniel's will, which left everything to Tyler with me as trustee. I found medical records, school enrollment forms, and bank account documents. And then, at the bottom of a filing cabinet I hadn't opened in years, I found a manila envelope with the county court seal. Inside were the guardianship papers from 10 years ago. I'd almost forgotten about them. After Daniel's death, I'd gone to court to become Tyler's legal guardian. It had seemed like a formality at the time, just paperwork to make sure I could make medical decisions and enroll him in school. But as I read through the documents, my hands started shaking. There, on page 4, was a signature. Rebecca's signature. She'd been served notice of the guardianship hearing. She'd been given the option to contest it, and she'd signed a form acknowledging the proceedings and waiving her right to contest. She'd known. She'd known I was taking legal custody, and she'd done nothing to stop it. The next morning, I brought everything to Jim. He spread the papers across his desk, reading carefully. When he got to Rebecca's signature, he looked up at me with something like hope in his eyes. "This changes things," he said. "She didn't just abandon Tyler. She legally consented to your guardianship, but she said she never signed papers giving up her rights. Technically, she didn't sign an explicit termination of parental rights. But this waiver, combined with 11 years of zero contact, that's what we call abandonment by conduct. And in Montana, that's grounds for termination." For the first time in 48 hours, I felt like I could breathe. But my relief was short-lived. 2 days later, a process server showed up at the house. Rebecca was suing for custody. The court date was set for 3 weeks away. Tyler found the papers on the kitchen table. "What's this?" I'd been dreading this conversation. "Sit down, son." We sat at the same kitchen table where I'd helped him with homework for years, where we'd eaten countless dinners, where we'd talked about everything from girls to college plans to whether aliens were real. "Your mother is trying to get custody of you," I said simply. "She wants you to move to California with her." Tyler's face went pale. "But you're my dad." The word hit me right in the chest. He'd started calling me Dad about 3 years ago. I'd never asked him to. One day, Uncle Marcus just became Dad, and I'd been too grateful to question it. "I know, buddy, and I'm going to fight this with everything I've got. But I need you to understand what's happening." Why does she even want me? She doesn't know me. That was the question, wasn't it? I'd done some digging over the past few days. Rebecca had married a real estate developer in San Francisco. They lived in a $4 million house in Pacific Heights. Her new husband had 2 adult children from his first marriage. By all accounts, they were living a very comfortable life. And Tyler's trust fund was worth over $1.5 million. I didn't want to poison Tyler against his mother, but he deserved to know the truth. Son, when your dad died, he left you everything. His share of the business, his life insurance, everything. It's been sitting in a trust fund, growing, waiting for you to turn 18. Tyler stared at me. How much? About $1.5 million, plus the college fund I've been contributing to. Total, you're looking at close to $2 million when you turn 18. And she knows about this. It wasn't a question. Tyler was smart enough to connect the dots. The sale of the business was in the paper 3 months ago, I said. 3 months later, she shows up. Tyler's jaw tightened, and for a moment, he looked so much like Daniel that my chest ached. So she wants the money. If she has custody of you, she'll control that trust fund as your guardian. She can decide how it's spent, where it's invested, everything. Until you're 18. That's 2 more years. Exactly. Tyler stood up and walked to the window, his hands shoved in his pockets. I don't want to go with her. I don't even know her. This is my home. You're my family. The guys on the football team, my friends, my school, everything I know is here. I know, and we're going to fight this. He turned around. What if we lose? I didn't have an answer for that. So I did what I'd always done when Tyler needed me. I told him the truth. Then we lose. But we're not going to make it easy for her. The 3 weeks before the court date were the longest of my life. Jim Patterson worked around the clock, building our case. We had affidavits from Tyler's teachers, his coaches, his friends' parents. We had 11 years of school records showing perfect attendance, good grades, no behavioral problems. We had medical records showing every checkup, every vaccination, every emergency room visit for sports injuries. We had bank statements showing I'd never touched a penny of Tyler's money except to invest it wisely. We had evidence of a stable, loving home. Rebecca's lawyer, meanwhile, was painting a picture of a reformed woman who'd made a mistake but was now ready to be a mother. She had letters from therapists talking about her emotional growth. She had financial statements showing her husband's wealth. She had photos of a beautiful home with a bedroom already decorated for Tyler. What she didn't have was 11 years of bedtime stories, scraped knees, homework help, and father-son talks. But apparently, that wasn't enough in the eyes of the law. The night before the hearing, Tyler came into my room. He was carrying something in his hands, and his eyes were red. Dad, I found this. He held out a photo album I'd put together years ago. It was full of pictures of Tyler growing up, his first day of school, his first fish, his 10th birthday party, Christmas mornings, summer camping trips. Every milestone, captured and preserved. I was looking for my birth certificate for Mr. Patterson, Tyler said, his voice thick. I found this in the closet. Did you make this? Your dad started it, I said. After you were born. I just kept it going after he died. Tyler flipped through the pages, and I could see tears running down his face. There are so many pictures. All these years, you were always there, for everything. Of course I was. You're my son. He looked up at me. Tomorrow in court, do I get to say anything? Jim says the judge might talk to you privately. Why? Because I need to tell him that I don't want to go with her. I need to tell him that you're my real dad. Not because of blood or legal papers, but because you chose me. Every single day for 11 years, you chose me. I pulled him into a hug, and we both cried. For Daniel, who should have been there to raise his son. For the years of struggle and joy we'd shared. For the fear of losing each other. The courthouse was a small brick building in the county seat, 30 miles from our town. Jim met us on the steps, his suit pressed, and his face serious. Remember, Marcus, he said. Let me do the talking. Stay calm. Don't let her lawyer get under your skin. Inside, the courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. The judge, a woman named Harriet Morrison, was in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Rebecca sat at the plaintiff's table with her lawyer, a slick-looking man in a $1,000 suit. Her husband was there too, looking bored and checking his phone. Tyler sat beside me, his leg bouncing nervously. I put my hand on his shoulder, and he stopped. Rebecca's lawyer went first. He painted a picture of a young mother overwhelmed by grief and postpartum depression. He talked about how she'd struggled after Daniel's death, how she'd made the difficult decision to leave so she wouldn't burden her son with her mental health issues. He showed pictures of her beautiful home in California, letters from therapists, and financial statements proving she could provide for Tyler. "My client has spent 11 years healing and growing," the lawyer said. "She's now in a position to give her son everything he deserves: a mother's love, a stable home, and access to opportunities he'll never have in rural Montana." Then it was Jim's turn. He stood up slowly, and something in his posture made me sit up straighter. "Your Honor," Jim began, "I've been practicing law in this county for 40 years. I've seen a lot of custody cases, but I've never seen anything quite like this." He walked to the evidence table and picked up a stack of papers. "These are the guardianship papers from 10 years ago. You'll notice on page 4, there's a signature, Rebecca Hart's signature. She was served notice of these proceedings. She could have contested them. She could have shown up to court. She could have fought for her son." He paused. "She did none of those things. She signed a waiver and disappeared." Rebecca's lawyer jumped up. "Your Honor, my client was suffering from severe depression. She wasn't in her right mind." "Then why?" Jim said calmly. "Did she never seek help? Why did she never call? Why did she never send a birthday card or a Christmas present? Why, in 11 years, was there not a single attempt to contact her son?" He pulled out another document. "This is Tyler Hart's school record, perfect attendance, honor roll every semester, multiple extracurricular activities. This is a well-adjusted, happy teenager." Another document. "These are medical records, every vaccination on time, every annual checkup completed, emergency room visits for a broken arm playing football and stitches from a fishing accident, normal, healthy childhood injuries, all properly treated." Another document. "This is a bank statement for Tyler's trust fund. You'll notice that not only has Mr. Walker never withdrawn a single penny, he's actually been making monthly contributions to Tyler's college fund from his own salary." Jim looked directly at Rebecca. "Miss Hart wants us to believe she's here, out of love. But let's look at the timeline. Tyler's trust fund was worth roughly $800,000 3 years ago. Miss Hart didn't show up. It was worth $1 million last year. Miss Hart didn't show up. But 3 months ago, that trust fund grew to $1.5 million when the business was sold. And suddenly, Miss Hart remembers she has a son." Rebecca's face went red. Her lawyer was furious. "Your Honor, this is pure speculation." But Jim wasn't done. He pulled out one more document. "This is a credit report for Rebecca Hart. 3 months ago, she maxed out 4 credit cards. Her new husband filed for bankruptcy last year. His real estate development company is facing multiple lawsuits. They're not financially stable. They're desperate." The courtroom went silent. Judge Morrison looked at Rebecca with something like disgust. "Your Honor," Jim said quietly, "this isn't about a mother's love. This is about money. Miss Hart abandoned her son when he needed her most. She stayed away when he was struggling with the loss of his father. She ignored him for 11 years. And now that he's worth $2 million, she suddenly wants to be his mother again." He turned to face the judge. "Montana law is clear. Abandonment, coupled with failure to support or communicate, is grounds for termination of parental rights. Miss Hart hasn't just abandoned Tyler emotionally. She abandoned him legally by consenting to Mr. Walker's guardianship and then doing nothing for over a decade." Judge Morrison nodded slowly. "I'd like to speak with Tyler. Alone." My heart stopped. This was it. Everything came down to what Tyler said in that room. They were gone for 20 minutes. When they came back, Tyler's eyes were red, but he looked calmer. He sat down next to me and grabbed my hand. Judge Morrison took her seat. I've reviewed all the evidence. I've spoken with Tyler, and I've made my decision. I couldn't breathe. Miss Hart, I don't doubt that you've faced challenges. Mental health struggles are real and valid, but so are the consequences of our choices. You didn't just leave your son temporarily. You consented to another person becoming his legal guardian. You severed contact completely. And most damningly, your return coincides exactly with your son becoming financially valuable. Rebecca started crying. Her lawyer put a hand on her arm. Tyler is 16 years old, the judge continued. He's old enough to have a voice in this decision, and he's made it very clear that Marcus Walker is his father in every meaningful way. He doesn't want to uproot his life. He doesn't want to leave his school, his friends, his community, and he certainly doesn't want to go with a mother who's essentially a stranger to him. Judge Morrison looked at me. Mr. Walker, it's clear that you've provided Tyler with a stable, loving home. You've never sought personal gain from his trust fund. You've put his needs first in every way. Therefore, I'm denying Miss Hart's petition for custody. Relief flooded through me so powerfully I thought I might pass out. Furthermore, the judge said, given the evidence of abandonment and Miss Hart's questionable motives, I'm terminating her parental rights permanently. Tyler Hart will remain in the sole custody of Marcus Walker. This court is adjourned. Tyler grabbed me and held on tight. I could hear him crying, and I was crying too. 11 years of fear, 11 years of love, 11 years of being the father my brother couldn't be, all validated in one moment. Rebecca stood up, her face a mask of fury. This isn't over, she hissed as she walked past us. I'll appeal. I'll take this to a higher court. But her lawyer put a hand on her arm and shook his head. Even he knew it was over. As we walked out of the courthouse, Tyler turned to me. Dad, I have a question. Anything. Can we legally change my last name? I don't want to be Tyler Hart anymore. I want to be Tyler Walker. I stopped walking. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Hart was my biological father's name, but Walker is my real father's name. You earned it. You deserve it. 3 months later, we stood in front of a judge again. But this time, it wasn't about custody. It was about adoption. Even though Tyler was 16, even though we'd been family for years, I wanted it to be official. I wanted the world to know that this was my son. When the judge signed the papers, Tyler Walker officially became my legal son. The kid I'd raised, the boy I'd loved, was now mine in every possible way. That night, we drove back to our small Montana town. The leaves were changing colors, and there was a hint of fall in the air. Tyler was quiet for most of the drive, then finally spoke. Dad, why do you think she really came back? I'd thought about this a lot over the past few months. I think she convinced herself she deserved the money. Maybe she even convinced herself she deserved you. People are good at rewriting their own stories, making themselves the hero, even when they're not. Do you think she ever actually loved me? That was a harder question. I think she loved the idea of you. But love isn't just a feeling, Tyler. It's a choice you make every single day. It's showing up when things are hard. It's putting someone else's needs before your own. It's 11 years of packed lunches and homework help and staying up late when you're sick. Like you did. Like I did. Because you're worth it. You've always been worth it. We drove in silence for a while longer. Then Tyler said, I'm glad she came back. That surprised me. Why? Because now I know for sure. I know that you didn't keep me because you had to. You kept me because you wanted to. You chose me, even when it would have been easier to let her take me. And that means more than DNA ever could. He was right. Rebecca's return had been painful, terrifying even. But it had also crystallized something important. Family isn't about biology. It's about showing up. It's about staying when things get hard. It's about choosing someone every single day and meaning it. Tyler turned 18 2 years later. The trust fund that Rebecca had fought so hard for became his to control. He used part of it for college, donated a chunk to the local youth sports programs that had given him so much, and invested the rest wisely. He's 23 now, finishing up graduate school. He still comes home for holidays, still calls me dad, still treats our small Montana town like home. And Rebecca? I heard through the grapevine that she got divorced. Her ex-husband's business did eventually declare bankruptcy. She tried to contact Tyler on his 18th birthday, but he never responded. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. People sometimes ask me if I regret taking Tyler in all those years ago, if I regret giving up my own dreams to raise my brother's son. The answer is simple: not for one single second. Because here's what I learned. Love isn't something you fall into. It's something you build, day by day, choice by choice, sacrifice by sacrifice. It's not the big dramatic gestures. It's the small, consistent acts of showing up. Rebecca was Tyler's mother by biology, but I became his father through every breakfast I made, every game I attended, every fever I worried through, every homework problem we solved together. I earned that title through 11 years of choosing him, even when it was hard, even when it was exhausting, even when I didn't know what I was doing. And in the end, that's what mattered. Not who brought him into this world, but who was there to help him navigate it. That's what being a parent really means. And that, as it turned out, was worth more than $2 million or any amount of money in the world. It was worth everything.